Hi everyone, my name's Emily. I'm going to be doing a stained glass demo for you today. My business name is Covington Glass Co. And you can find me at covingtonglassco.com or at Covington Glass Co on Instagram and Facebook. And if you have any questions, shoot me an email, but let's get the demo started. All right, glass cutting. So I kind of did Food Network style demo for you where I already traced my pieces onto the pieces of glass. I make my patterns out of manila folder material, number the pieces, and then you have like a master that you can refer back to. So that's important when you're cutting, so you make sure everything's the right size and it's going to be fitting together properly. So I traced around each piece of the pattern with just a paint marker. Gold works really well, like an enamel paint marker, fine point. And then yeah, so I'm gonna go ahead and start cutting. This is I have a Toyo pistol grip cutter. There's a couple different types of cutters. I like this kind because it's a little easier on your hands if you're doing it for a long time. It has a swivel tip somewhat, and you can put oil in there. A lot of people try and fill the whole thing up with oil. I have found the hard way that it's easy for it to leak out, so I just do enough to kind of go through the cutter to the tip there. All right, so glass cutting is, a lot of it is you hear when you're cutting it correctly. So I'm gonna start with this green piece right here. I'm going to start with this short end. Put down some pressure. You'll hear when it's cutting, see? That's the sound you wanna hear. Glass is glass, so you're not gonna be able to cut super complicated patterns with a cutter like this. There are saws you can get, which I would like one eventually, but there's a lot you could do without a saw. So other tools I use for this are, they're Silberschnitt running pliers, which kind of break along the edges, and then these are Grosing pliers, and they kind of snap pieces off. So for this part, we'll just use the Grosing pliers. Pop it off the curved side to the bottom. There we go. See, there's a little bit of a, there we go. I usually like to guide it with my finger while I'm doing it. This glass in particular is annoying to break, I will say. Crumbles like so. You're gonna get cut a lot if you do stained glass. That's just kind of, a thing. Especially with glass like this, it's like really streaky, a bunch of different colors going on in there, pretty thick. All of those things equal hard to cut. Red glass is harder to cut than other colors of glass just because of the pigments that go in there. There we go. So I'm just gonna cut everything else really quick, and then we'll go over to the grinder. So here's one I'm gonna use my running pliers for. You just make sure that this part is like a bar, that it's running perpendicular to your cut. There we go, magic. And these are nice because you can cut a lot of curves because this adjusts. So you can cut a pretty steep curve, which normally you would have to have a saw for. but the edges are all crumbly. You know, they're not gonna sit together cleanly, so we're gonna go over to the grinder now. All right, I have a glass star grinder, which is awesome. So basically how it works is you fill this channel with water, and the water kind of wicks up through the sponge and keeps the wheel wet. And the wheel does the grinding. It has diamond, it's like a diamond grinding wheel. Yeah, you can grind this way and kind of clean all those, you know, gnarly looking edges. What I like to do is just make sure none of my marker is showing, so then I know, you know, I'm cutting it to my pattern. So I'm gonna just go ahead and grind some glass now. All right, so we ground all our pieces. One thing to note, wear eye protection. I wear glasses and I usually always have this thing on there, but you know, for filming I didn't. Also, this is super messy. I don't know if you can see all of the glass spray that's all over the place. I'm in my garage studio, so it doesn't really matter. I do clean it from time to time, even though it may not look like it. But yeah, it's messy, and definitely wear eye protection. When there gets to be shards up here, I generally just like clean it off with like a wet toothbrush so you don't get cut. All right, time to apply copper foil. Here's my handy dandy copper foiling tool. There are things that will like kind of like tape rollers that will apply it for you, but I've never, you know, found the need really to do this. There's a couple different widths of foil depending on the width of glass you have. You can see that there's different widths. There's 3/16, 7/32, a quarter, and I can't remember the last one. It's so thick I like hardly ever use it. 7/32 is pretty standard, 3/16 or 7/32, so that's what we're gonna use today. All right, start with this one. You never want to have an end of your foil on an outside edge if you're not going to put a frame around it. So we're going to make sure that we're doing it on the bottom. You peel it off like that. You center the glass on there. So you can see there's like an equal amount of tape on this side and this side. And that's so you're not going to, when you look straight through the window, you're not going to see the other side. It's going to be more of like a seamless experience when you look at it. And you kind of just like go around like this, foiling. You want to try and have, you know, you can peel it back a little bit. It gets less sticky the amount of times the more times you fix it. So definitely try and avoid that. So there we go. It's completely encapsulated in foil. You just tear it off. And so now you're gonna kind of squish it down with your fingers. Pinch it. The corners are a little difficult. I use my fingernails generally. And you kind of do it like wrapping a Christmas present, where you like fold one side over and then you under, and then you fold the other side over. And then you pinch it all neatly. All right, and then so the next part is burnishing. And so I'm gonna get these out of the way. They do sell burnishers. I use the end of a razor blade. This is my favorite tool to use when foiling, because when you have, you can burnish like so at the flat end. And then if you ever have like a spot where it's really thick, where you need to like trim it back, you can just do that. Or if you have any tails, that's what's called when you lay the foil down, and you see the start of the foil, you know, line on here, it'll kind of be, it sticks out. Oh, here's one actually. Here's a little bit of one, we'll fix it. You see where it has a little bump right there? We're gonna trim that off with this razor blade. There we go. Now it's nice and neat. And things like that are just, you know, it's when you see a finished piece and you can tell that that step wasn't done, it kind of kills the whole vibe. So we're just gonna quickly foil the rest of these pieces here. there's our piece all foiled up and ready to go for solder. Alright guys, this next part of the demo is soldering. So before we start, I'm just going to go over what tools and materials you need for this part of the process. Flux is very important. I really like gel flux. It stays on the copper seams a little bit better. And this just makes the solder go where you want it to go, namely on the copper seams. I use both types of solder, which is 60-40, so 60% tin, 40% lead, and then 50-50, which is 50% of both. 50-50 has a little bit lower of a melt point. It's good for working fast and laying down your preliminary solder. And then your 60-40, you can build up that three-dimensional seam. 50-50 is a little bit less expensive, so I use that as much as I can before I do the 60-40. For the hangers, I like to make them myself, and I use 18 gauge tinned copper wire. We'll get to that part in a little bit. My soldering iron, I have a Hacko. It's adjustable. The degrees are in Celsius, so it's kind of, you know, that part's a little bit of a learning curve, but once you figure it out, it's great. It's the best soldering iron I've ever had. I love it. And then also an important thing to have, not really a tool, is a wet sponge, and that's to keep your soldering tip clean. Always wear gloves when you solder. The flux is poisonous, shouldn't get on your hands. And then also the vapor from soldering is also not good to breathe in, so make sure you're in a well-ventilated area. All right, let's get to soldering. So I start off with 50-50 to lay down, to tack this in place, and you'll see I have some thumbtacks here to hold it in place while I work. So I'm going to put down a little bit of flux and then tack down my solder beads. And as you can see, I kind of did a chopping motion with the solder to get the beads to come off and stick to the copper. And so now that it's tacked in place, you can take off your thumbtacks because it's not going to move around now. So now you have to flux the rest of the piece just along all of the seams there. And I usually like to pick it up and then gently, because it's still not completely held together, and flux the edges there. All right. And then, so this is the first pass of solder. I do this with 50-50. Some people just go right ahead at this stage with the 60-40, but again, I like to save money wherever I can. So I like to make a flat bead around the whole piece, front and back, with 50-50. And then I go in and build my second bead. And so you'll notice that I kind of have the soldering tip down flat like this, and I kind of just press all those beads down, and if there's anywhere that kind of needs more solder, I just kind of stick that soldering stick in there. So, all right, let's do our first bead. All right, so that part's done. Now we're gonna do the sides. And you kind of do it at the top and let it kind of fall along the upright side of your glass. And it's important to flux that side so the solder has, you know, a path to stick to. If you don't, it kind of goes everywhere, sticks to your board. So our preliminary bead is pretty much done. At this stage, you want to go around the outside and see if you can see any copper poking out. because that is bad. Oh, I do see some right here. So we'll come back to that spot. Oh, on the other edge too. Okay, so we'll finish that because when you patina a project, the patina will not stick to copper. And if you don't do patina, if you just have it silver solder, it will look, you know, bad. So make sure that doesn't happen. So let's take a look again. All that copper's covered up. Okay, now we're ready to roll. Oh, there's a little bit more. So now is the time to make and attach the hangers. So like I mentioned before, I make my own with wire. You can also buy jump rings from the craft store. And so you'll see I just kind of bend loops with wire and then attach them. You'll want to attach them in seams, like right here and right here, rather than just to the foil itself, because you'll want the integrity of the hanging structure to stay in place for the life of the piece. If you put too much stress on the copper foil itself, your piece will fall down and break, which is sad. So let's get started with the hangers. All right, there are both of my hangers. Now I'm going to attach them to these two seams here. So the hangers are fastened and the back is done. I like to do a front and a back to my pieces that are going to be, you know, primarily sun catchers, because you don't need to spend the materials to build up a bead on the back of the piece if it's just going to be resting against a window. So right now, here's the front side. You can see the iridescent on the top, and this is the side of this green glass I wanted to be showing when it's finished. So now I'm going to take my 60/40 solder and I'm going to build up the solder lines to be more three-dimensional. So this part of the soldering is a little different than laying down a flat bead, because you want to use this side edge of the soldering iron. It's kind of shaped like a, you know, like a highlighter or whatever. You want to use the side edge to lay down your bead this way. And without touching the tip of the iron to the piece itself, you'll just want to kind of press into the tip of the solder and let it fall to where you want it to. You want to maintain a pretty good speed. If you overwork at one area in particular, you can heat up the glass too much and it can crack actually. Or you can have a blowout, which is where you heat up the solder too much and then it blows out to the other side of the piece. All right, so let's start building up this 60/40 solder. All right, and you can see like I have some imperfections right here. So what you do is you go back through and kind of even it out with kind of a chopping motion. So you can see this center bead is, you know, three-dimensional now. It sticks up. This is a good view to look at and see if you have any parts that stick up a lot or parts that are really low. So now we finish the rest of the lines on here three-dimensionally. So as you can see, we have these nice three-dimensional lines on the front. Oh, I'm gonna fix this little part here. Got too much solder in that corner. There we go. All right, and so this pattern, I use solder drips for just a little bit more texture to kind of look like bolts on a spaceship. So we are going to do that. This is really hard to do if you don't have, sorry, scraping away more solder. If you don't have an adjustable soldering iron, it can be a real challenge, but it just takes practice and a lot of flux. So you wanna reflux the areas that you wanna put the drips down, so we'll do that. I'm just kind of evenly spacing them. All right. And I'm going to use more 50/50 solder for this. This is probably a good time to note. Some people just like roll it out from the roll and use it like that. I like to like cut off a piece just because I like find holding the roll itself is like pretty tedious. So what I do is I literally just chop it off. And then I have a long stick to use. I feel like it gives me a little bit more dexterity. All right, so now it's time for the drips. You kind of just like pull it on the soldering tip and then you let it fall. So let's do that. Whoops, that was horrible. There we go. Let's just add a little bit more material there. There we go. I kind of like to use the flat side first and then let it fall. That was a better one. And then you can add more material to it as well to get them really, really big. Right, so we are done soldering. So there you go. You can see we have the drips, the lines are nice and thick, the back is flat, everything's attached. We don't have any blow-throughs, the hangers look nice. And so now you have to remove all the flux before you start to patina. So what I usually do is I wash it with Dawn dish soap, and I take a scrub brush and I just kind of scrub all over it. And then I use a quick cleaner to clean it, and I'll go over the next part in the video, which is patinaing, and then after that is cleaning. Thanks. All right, patina. This is easily the most poisonous part of the process. You see, poison causes severe burns, vapor harmful. Definitely gloves. This will burn through your gloves eventually. So like, I usually just use disposable nitrile gloves because dishwashing gloves, you can use them for like maybe 5 times and then they get holes in them, which defeats the point. Again, it will burn through your brushes too. This is just like a kind of disposable patina brush. This is cleaned, so after I soldered, I scrubbed it off with Dawn dish soap, dried it off really well, and then used quick clean patina cleaner, flux and patina cleaner, and did another spray down, and then cleaned it off. So you want no flux remaining on there, so the patina does its thing. And then you can see right away, you just kind of want to, you don't really have to be neat and clean. You just kind of want to really put a good coat on, get in all the crevices. You don't need to patina. A lot of people don't. I tend to do it for pretty much every single one of my pieces because I love the way it looks. One, factor is the foil you use. If you use black backed foil, if you have a semi-transparent piece of glass, you see light through it and there's black behind it. So if you don't have that patina laid down, it's gonna look odd because you'll have silver solder and then black in the inside. They do make silver backed copper foil, and that's usually what people use when they don't want to apply patina. So I'm just like scrubbing in all the lines. Just get in there with it. All right, super easy, that step at least. There you go, it's patinaed. I'm gonna give it 4 to 8 hours to soak in, and then I'm going to rinse it off, and then I'm gonna clean it. Okay, so for the last part of the demo, we're gonna do cleaning. And so you can see the patina has been applied. I actually had to omit a step from showing you guys because I had to rinse this off earlier today. So after you apply the patina, you're gonna wanna give it 4 to 8 hours. Don't let it sit on there too long, and then just rinse it off. I use my garden hose, and then I just scrub it with a toothbrush. And then so that's where we are now. So it'll look like this. Still kind of, hazy, maybe some marks on there from when you made your pattern. Okay, so now we're gonna do cleaning. And a lot of people have their own special way to do this. So this is mine, and kind of just like learn as you go. In general, you're going to start off with some type of polish. I like Neverdull because that's gonna take away the excess patina that's on there. All right, I usually just get like so, a little wad, and you can use these for forever. This tin has gotten me through like a year at least. So then you're just gonna want to go over all the solder lines pretty thoroughly. You'll see that like the black is coming off on the pad there. Then if there's like marker on the front, you can kind of go over it, and that takes off a lot of the marker for the pattern. Go around the sides, and then I do the back too. Sorry if you guys can hear my dog chewing on his bone in the background. All right, so there's the polish. So now we're gonna wanna take off the polish. For this step, I like quick clean. It's technically a flux cleaner, but I also use it for this step as well. It works really well, and you can kind of use it in conjunction with a scrub brush and really, you know, get gunk off. So give it some sprays. Kind of get in there. Make sure not to go too hard around the outside if you don't have a edge on it, if it's just the foil, because you can, like, you know, clean it too hard and then you're gonna have copper foil peel off, which is no fun. Cleaning involves a lot of gross rags, so I use my kids' old burp rags. Just wipe it off just to get it dry. Just, you know, if I'm cleaning a lot of stuff, I don't like to have, like, to get the bottom, like, towel super wet, because then once you do the final polish, you don't want to, like, put it down and have it, you know, get wet all over again. So again, do the back, kind of wipe it clean. All right, there we go, looking cleaner. You can see the last step is, I really like this Clarity finishing compound. It's like it's a polish for the glass and the solder. It makes the glass look super shiny. Definitely shake it up. A tight weave cloth is good to put it on with. And it's kind of like, you know, any other liquid polish. You're gonna wanna, you know, not overdo it. And then I usually use good old cotton ball to kind of get an even coating on the solder and the glass itself. Even like on the top. Oops. Like that. All right, and then you kind of have to wait for it to dry so it gets like a little milky looking on the surface. I don't know if my camera can pick this up. Yeah, kind of. Yeah, see, it's like it's a little milky looking. That's how you know that it's ready to be wiped off. And your like preliminary wipe will be really quick motions with that tight weave cloth, kind of go in different directions with it. Okay, and then what I like is to clean, you know, you need to clean the polish off of these lines right here, like in the seams. So this is a sharpened chapstick. I usually save them for when I get Chinese food. And then I use a paper towel and I fold it in quarters. And that gives me, like, you know, the surface I need to get in there and clean the lines in there. And again, don't be super aggro with the edges because it's really easy to push that foil off of the edge. And I'm kind of going faster and less carefully than I normally do just because, you know, I only have 30 minutes to do this demo for you guys. Okay. And now you'll see, like, you know, there's a huge difference in how shiny the solder is, how shiny the glass is. It looks great. Yeah, and so you just repeat the process for the back and then you are all cleaned. And, you know, cleaning is something that when people are starting off tend to go, you know, skimp on, but it's important to remember that as a piece ages, the solder can still oxidize and it creates what's called like white mold if it's not properly cleaned. And so it's always a bummer to spend all this time making a piece, store it, hang it up, 2 weeks later you have all this, you know, white fuzzy stuff on it. So clean it well to avoid it. And, you know, that's the end of my demo. Thanks so much for tuning in. Bye.